Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Return of the Obra Dinn. So we almost went a full hour without getting any progress at all. And mostly what we learned in the last episode is you can't really guess. Uh, we know that the locked room is called the Lazarette, and that there's at least one person chained up in there on top of the mermaid creatures being held in there. Um, but yeah, if I just were to pick this guy, say, and give him a different name, which almost certainly he is um, deserving of a different name, actually, we can see that this guy was actually shot, not. He must have been shot with a gun by somebody over there. So that guy, we need to figure out who that guy is. Um, and see, this is such a long hallway, so that you intentionally cannot go back. So I have to figure out just visually through looking at these holes, and now we know why these holes exist, is because they wanted very much to make a scene like this where you weren't going to be allowed to get close enough to just use the zoom to figure out who shot where. So we've got a kind of bald guy, shirtless, white pants. Um, this is the first mate. It's labeled as the first mate. Yeah, actually, it's confirmed as the first mate. Here we have the guy looking in the mirror, handing out apparently weapons. Interesting. I guess they wanted to. No, he's not looking in the mirror. There's two people. Alright, so. Captain Steward. He's probably not. We're down to quite a few things, actually. This is the gunner. So if this is anything, he should be like the gunner's mate. We don't know who shot him, but that's where I think this is gonna boil down to. And then there's like nobody else you can even see. So a shirtless guy with white pants. Hmm. Bald, shirtless guy. Which we've seen some people shirtless, certainly, but that doesn't inherently mean they would always be shirtless. So, do we see any mustache on this guy? Or facial hair? No. So we can eliminate a significant amount of them. Is it this guy? Hmm. 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 I think it is this guy, but we don't know who this guy really is or how that guy really died, probably. Because if I'm just saying he fell overboard, I've kind of defaulted that to be the default answer. Hmm. I'm gonna say this guy was shot by Samuel Peters. And we'll see if that's right. That's pretty much all we can take from this, though. Hmm. more and more we're having to find right information as opposed to just partial information that might be useful but might also be wrong. There definitely is a sequence here. We need to go to the bosun's store. There's a sequence that's missing where in a more typical kind of like adventure game you would have had everybody sitting around the table, and then you would have perhaps had a seating chart around the table and seeing people eating and having like assigned seating. Something like that could have been really useful as a hint instead of the game really leaving you to your own devices very much as far as trying to figure out which who is who based on not a lot of information. It seems often that there's only like one hint in total that might tell you who someone is, and in a lot of cases there aren't any hints. You just have to use the process of elimination. Okay. This guy is he used a hand cannon to shoot this creature. We know about him. He's already dead. Yep. And this is the guy we're calling Samuel Peters. And then we have Alexander Booth. We know him. And Maba. We know him. So there's actually not a lot of information. There's somebody under the stairs. Nathan Peters. You can really tell how the ship like this is not well designed for combat once you've been boarded. In all fairness, these monsters not really designed to board a human ship, and but they seem to be powerful enough to handle it and kill a significant amount of people. Had they simply managed to throw a lot more warriors at them, they would have succeeded a lot better at killing everybody on the ship. And I suppose this is also evidence that it is a mermaid riding a giant crab, not just one giant creature, because there really wouldn't be a reason why you would take the mermaid off the giant crab if it was attached. And I guess they probably are wearing some kind of seaweed camouflage. So that's 6. So now we want to look for 7. Where's 7? 7 is the Doom. And so the Doom starts up here. It sure would be nice to just fast travel to that location. There's no real benefit now that we are probably 10 hours into the gameplay, if not longer. Like, no real benefit whatsoever to make me continuously walk. And then your map system doesn't quite work the way I would like it to. There we go. Because things are just not labeled quite exactly where I think they should be.
I forget. You killed my brother. What? That was an accident. The robes. It wasn't his fault. I saw the whole thing.
See, what's crazy here is this guy literally is attacking him while they either just barely struggled to survive and they've lost probably about half their crew at this point, where it would be way easier and smarter to just let them get on the boat and then attack them later. All right, so who is this? Duncan McKay, the pursuer. Alexander, he fell off the boat too. This guy was clubbed by Nathan Peters, and we figured out this was Nathan Peters because he was the only person with the same last name. And see, this must have been a path that ended here because there's no other dead bodies to scan. So this chapter must have also gone backwards. And there's just nothing else to see. And that scene definitely did have information that was helpful. It's just not helpful anymore. And that will be an inherent problem as we go further and further through this whole story a second time, is that the stories and the bits being shown to us may basically contain only irrelevant information. And people's voices are just not unique enough, and they all kind of talk the same. So if you're supposed to be a lot better about recognizing voices or recognizing faces with the level of graphics here, that is something that I don't think I would expect to actually happen. Okay. We have this guy labeled as a midshipman, although he was killed with a sword by an unknown attacker. Although he's preparing food, which would put me more to believe that he was a steward. But it doesn't even really matter what I say he is, because until I see his death, I can't even get a guess correct. I can't guess to see if it's correct. This guy we know. Alright. Can we make a guess here? It doesn't matter, we don't know how he died. And maybe there's something on the timeline where we would potentially be able to process the chronology and say, well, we know number 44 and number 43 are asleep and alive here. So does that eliminate a lot of people? Or does that eliminate only a small number of people? Seems like the cots hang down much lower. So 44, 43. And then 45. Which... See, this guy's cot is down, so you can't see that anyways. So 44, 43, and 45 would all be top men. The odds that this is a Russian top man Seems fairly low. I don't think it is. Well, this is a top man, so maybe this is the Russian top man. Or Sierra Lee. Yeah, let's say he's the Russian top man. Why not? Might as well put names on people. And we still kind of have to guess who they are. This is the third mate steward, which makes me think this is the third mate. Of course, it doesn't inherently mean anything. Like, why would the third mate make the steward carry 2 plates and potentially drop them just to follow? And we apparently don't know if he dies. Like, there's definitely something that has to be revealed more to tell you at least the last 3 murders. The last 3 fates of people. And you can't really assume that everybody fell overboard. Well, you can, actually. It's fairly easy to assume that everybody fell overboard. And you just won't ever really know. And see, we're in a memory right now. So if I scan this, I think the gates... Yeah, this is the point where you do memories within memories and you get a different animation. Okay. And when you walk out of this memory... Alright. So you do get a different experience if you're going inside a memory of a memory. And that's the animation they were trying to show. So next we need to go to the area over here. Am I in the right place? Not yet. This guy. It's been a while since we've seen these sequences. These are kind of the very first sequences because we got the story out of order and now we're trying to follow the story somewhat in order. Okay. Still don't know who this is. But you know what I probably would guess? He's a midshipman of some sort. Because there'd be kind of no reason for him to be here. And that's the gunner. That would make sense. And that makes me think he's possibly a midshipman too. But did this guy die in this sequence? Yeah. Blasted by a cannon. Who else? Interesting angle as the ship has been pitched. You could definitely have gone crazy with effects and made somebody very seasick on a boat like this. Although, what does it really benefit anybody whatsoever to make a game that would make people seasick? Or motion sick? We know who this guy is. Do we know this guy? There aren't really a lot of midshipmen. And that's where I think a lot of this would probably come down to, is that we should either I've put midshipmen in the wrong group, or sailors and seamen are just kind of all over the place. See, we know he's a seaman. Actually, now that we know that, that means, so if this is Henry Brennan, then the guy here was shot by Henry Brennan. Wow. So we just got one accurate match, which tells me that there's not been an accurate guess at all. Yeah, we know that it's that person. So if we could get something else, just one more thing that we're fairly certain of, I could use that to try and narrow down a very difficult guess. How do you even leave this room? Ah, here's the door. And then next guy. Next person to die, just like instantly after it. He said belay spark, which means delay it or don't shoot. Obviously, they couldn't put the spark out fast enough. The question here is, well, we know this guy was shot by the cannon. What happened to the other guy? Because disintegrated's not a good guess. And he wouldn't really be so distantly away, because they intentionally have everybody just slightly where they were before. So it looks to me what happened is he fell out the window, and that's just seemingly the only option, is that he just fell right out the window. So if I scan this and go back, that's the easiest way to get. Yeah, this guy had to have just fallen out overboard. Let's see. Drowned. Fell overboard. And then I need to just give him a seaman name and see if any of that possibly works. Still just trying to guess. It would be an interesting thought to perhaps have completely discrete levels. Let's say that this was your magical job and you went to multiple locations and there were just slightly fewer people and slightly fewer instances of death, that probably would work a little bit better, I think, for most players. The grandness of this and the linearity from the beginning to the end makes it really more of a marathon game, where if there were 3 acts that were very separate and those 3 acts were in completely different areas and different scenery, I could appreciate that. It would take more animation, certainly, and if Lucas Pope did actually do most of the development of this game, I assume he did. But yeah, at a certain point, you also kind of feel like you're very possibly just making excuses for a game, because this game does have to stand up on its own against even the most AAA games. There's no way getting around that. You can give a little bit of leniency to an indie game, but you can't go insane with it and praise an indie game that actually does have lacking features. And this game, you can call the black and white an art style if you want it, but it also, in my book, falls directly under the idea of I would say it falls directly under the description of lacking color. I don't see there's a way you get around that. Since we don't know who shot that guy, we still have a lot of people like this where we're going to have to see their actual instance in which they were killed, because I'm going to have to be able to recursively figure out who the killer was or what the killer was. And in that case, the ship is pitched the other way, so you can see it's rocking back and forth quite a lot in that sequence. Okay. And that brings us back up to the Doom Part 6 on the top. I'm a little surprised you can walk over the cannon. It would have been fairly easy for the game to just say no to that. And just block you from being able to step upward. And then Lucas Pope really wouldn't have had to animate that as part of the gameplay programming. Of course, it's very possible this is done in Unreal or Unity, so a lot of that may be pretty easily to program and pre-made stuff. Okay. So this guy was exploded by powder. And we got it. Mostly by guessing. I am getting achievements for these. So we knew that was right. But we had something else that was right. We figured out that guy was dead. Fell overboard. That was new. And then we guessed that name. Very, very slow progress, though. So. And now we're down to just, like, a small number of seamen, and one of them is English. So if I'm seeing a guy like this, then I have to assume he's not English or he's not a seaman. Henry Evans, the surgeon, is not alive in that area. And we might as well... Like, for all we know, the death might be the wrong thing there. So I'm just going to unknown that and unknown that, because I don't remember. This is in the midship cabin, so it's a decent chance it is a midshipman. But I don't have that, so I'm just going to... Well, actually, I'll just leave that as unknown, because we don't know how he died anyways. We might as well just unmark everything that we're not 100% sure with. Let's see. There's still the bargain to go. This isn't the bosun's mate. This has got to be a sailor. So that's got to be Samuel Peters. We assume he fell overboard to his death. And that's correct. I think we will be able to brute force some of this. This guy's not that midshipman. Could he be from Sierra Leone? And a seaman? Possibly. This could be a steward. Just really trying to guess here and hoping that I can get 3 done. 3 would make this fairly easier. 3 more, because at a certain point then we don't have any groups of 3 that won't have at least distinct differences from each other. Although it doesn't really feel like there's as much of a distinct differences as I would like. A lot of the officers do seem to pretty much look exactly like all the other officers. Let's see. And that's like the first death. So if I have 2 others right, I should be able to just brute force this. And I bet I don't have enough right to brute force it. He is labeled as a 3rd level difficult person. And I bet there's possibly even some people that are labeled third level difficulty people because we simply don't ever see when they die, or we don't know who they are ever, and we have to use deductive reasoning to figure it out. Yeah. Yeah, you either know that this is the helmsman or the bosun's mate. I don't think he's the first or second mate. He kind of looks like the gunner's mate. And so, yeah, that's either the third mate or the fourth mate. And we don't even know who this is or his fate. Is there anybody else around? You can just walk up to these tentacles and they don't affect you, which they block you. Everything blocks you from walking through them if you run directly into them, but that's about it. Yeah, I don't really feel like at this current point just walking through everything a second time will guarantee your victory or guarantee you all the answers. But it's about all you can do. There's no side game here, which it feels like maybe it would be beneficial if you found a book, one of those Skyrim-esque, like 5-page type books that you could just sit down and read, and maybe there would be some story in it that was helpful, or maybe it would just be an interesting world building tale. Again, that would be a lot to ask for one developer to do. So the Kraken took a boat of 3 people that I can't zoom in on and flung them in the ocean. So we know all 3 of those people are dead. We think that guy fell overboard, but seemingly maybe not. What does this guy have in his hand? Is that some kind of powder to blow something up again? We know he flew overboard. And in this scene it's raining, but the rain is paused, unlike in the current time frame in which the rain actually falls. Are there anybody else in the multiple legs? Unknown soul was knifed by an unknown attacker. Shot with a gun. Gun being tossed by the bosun. So do we want to say he's the bosun's mate just because he tossed him a gun? I mean, is that really what this boils down to? If you have any interaction with anyone ever, are you then at that point completely connected to that person? They did manage to slice off one tentacle. This guy's getting ripped in half. See, we have him labeled as the gunner's mate, and apparently we don't know what happened to him because we just don't see it. At a certain point, I guess the question probably needs to be, if these people are just missing in the next sequence, they probably fell overboard, and we just have to make that assumption. I was doing that by default anyways, because it seemed like that would be the only way a body could possibly be missing, is that it fell overboard in the midst of the memories. And see, this is chapter 7, 8 of 8, and this is the second chapter and the first subsection of a chapter that we did after the first little tutorial idea. Okay. So this guy had been torn in half. And I guess originally that door may not have actually been used. Yeah. You can see him here. Still alive. We can see this guy tangled up. So did he escape? Nope, he was torn apart eventually by a terrible beast. This guy was clubbed, but he's not a top man. So he's got to be something different. Just throw some guesses in here. She's easy, and we already know the answer. Now, she said Martin, which that would mean he's the third mate, which that would mean he is the fourth mate. I'm assuming that's right. Because why would she be talking otherwise? You can see these two are on the top here. You can't just really make an assumption that that everybody was alive or everybody was killed, unfortunately. You can see waves, and the waves don't feel like they should be that well connected, and it feels like this doesn't feel like waves of water at that point. This feels like almost sheets of something. I don't even know what. Sheets of like velvet or something swaying over. I would have wanted to depict that differently. Is there... that guy fell overboard. Are there people up there? Or is that just rain? I think that's just rain. He blocks me from going up there. And this blocks me from going up there. Speared by a second mate. Seriously? I don't think so. Either this guy's wrong, and this isn't the fourth mate steward, or he was, let's go, drowned by the beast. I'm gonna change that and hope that's not a mistake, because it's as equally odd if someone were to survive all of that. See, I marked her like crushed by a falling rig, but also you could have easily said that she was bludgeoned by a rigging or crushed by rigging. Alright, well then that is the end of chapter 7, and I believe chapter 8 is the bargain, or chapter 9 is the bargain, so yeah, 9 is escape. So yeah, let's go see if we can actually make some progress in this hour by triggering the events that would have happened right after that. So the Kraken attacked, it went away with the storm after the bargain, whatever happened in the bargain. And then people really didn't trust the Okay.
We didn't. It left with the storm. Captain came up from the hold. Said he chased it off. You should rest.
You have a heartbeat sound. So this guy's French, and his mate was French. Then it's kind of a heavy French accent. So the bosun's mate, if we can pull this out. Alright, if this is the bosun, then we would be looking for the bosun's mate. Did we ever label the bosun's mate? Yeah, I think that would be fairly hard to do. Unless he's also in this sequence somewhere. This guy is not the bosun's mate. We know that much. And they kind of intentionally, I think, put you down here so that you couldn't walk up and see the other people. That's the first mate. And you can kind of see how that guy's dressed. Do we even have a French person left? Yeah, the bosun's mate is French. Which probably would have been an indicator more more to the fact that that was the bosun than anything else. And then think this is just the captain once again. So I don't think there's much more you can pull from this scene. You can't go up. He's blocking that way. You can't go down. This definitely was an early scene, you can tell, because there's not that many people and not that much to see or take from it. All right. So then where does the next spot happen? Way up there. Let's see. Actually, what I'd like to do is come over here and scan this and see if we can maybe get here and see if that's the bosun's mate. We don't know that. If that's the bosun's mate, that seems underdressed. This was the bosun. Yeah, I don't feel like I have enough solid information to make a guess there from that. Also, if the bosun's mate is the Frenchman he was talking about, then that guy couldn't have been the bosun, because we just saw the bosun. So there's like two conflicting pieces of information. I'd hate to find out that this game was actually a little bit glitchy, and that there actually was a logical flaw in it.
Last one. Move quick. You'll not take the last one.
Okay. What we want to do before we do anything else is we know that this is called the escape. So the escape happened here, which means they either went to Madeira or the Azores or Canary Islands, assuming that's where they went. Either that or all these people died. We have no idea who this is. So, he is a 3-star. So I'm gonna leave him alive and say he's in the Azores. And then I'm gonna say he's in the Azores. And I'm gonna say she's alive in the Azores. And then if I can get this third person, then we should have 3 things correct, if that's the idea. So no, not the Azores. So then we'll change it to either Cape Verde or Canary Islands. It almost seems like one of these people should die just so they are a spoiler and not just a simple answer. We'll try this one more time, and if this isn't right, then I have no idea. Like, Unless, perhaps... Perhaps there's something here to think of. When we were at the very beginning here, what does he say? Failing health has only allowed me to produce only the basic outline that follows. Use the pocket watch to determine the identity. So he had found the pocket watch somewhere, but it doesn't seem like it came from the ship because we don't see it anywhere. Although maybe it was in Henry Evans' pocket throughout the entire events of the story. Affairs in Morocco. Yep. So the assumption is that either somebody here doesn't survive as they're trying to escape, or something else happens. Do we know who this guy is? Lewis Walker, top man. Do we know who? He's either Thomas Lank, midshipman, who was killed by Lewis Walker, top man, or this isn't Lewis Walker. No, this is the captain. We're calling this the first mate's steward, but we know that's wrong. So, like, he's either a steward or he's a seaman. He kind of looks like a seaman. He seems to be actively always kind of behind the captain, attempting to strike. We know this is the first mate. We know that this is Henry Brennan. And we know that them and him all end up being the last 3 people alive. So there is considerably fewer people on the ship at this point, which does make sense. Interesting, this door is open, but you can't see inside of it. This guy was... What does he look like? He's either a helmsman officer or he's a steward. Well, he's a midshipman. I don't think he's a... He was knifed either by this guy, Ollis Waiter, the gunner's mate, or John Davies. Let's try that. Let's see. Well, either we don't have 2 other ones right, or that's wrong. John Davies is probably up at the top, not down at the bottom. Or we've got the names wrong. This feels a lot like a jigsaw puzzle in a weird way. It almost feels like a jigsaw puzzle where you're only given the pieces after the fact. It's also interesting that the water went so high when the Kraken attacked that it went over the bows, when you consider that there are windows here on the second floor that indicate the boat should be sailing fairly high from the roof of the crest, or the crest of the sea. Like it should be really, really far down there, and yet it came all the way over in the storm. Let's just be certain that this guy we know is right. That's about the best evidence we have. And here you can see the ship at some part was repaired after the Kraken attack. Okay. Next one would be here, and it's been an hour, and I just want to get like one match. Like, you kind of have to assume that everybody that's not still alive did escape and make it off alive, but I'm not sure that that's really the case. Emily Jackson. There we go. Let's see if we can get this answered. If that's not Emily Jackson, then either this is not Lewis Walker, or Miss Jane Bird shot him. But at least we can put a name there. And there's, I assume she's alive and she didn't just somehow die. Still no clue who this person is. Still probably wrong on that guess. And then we have the captain again. And then we have the first mate again. And then we have the seaman. So unless there's some secret extra bit of information, like you can now see a little bit further, but there's nothing there, which it certainly feels like there was a plot at that point. Right. So he was stabbed by the gunner's mate. Assuming this is the gunner's mate. Which very well, he may not be the gunner's mate. Okay. So, changing this one probably won't help any because we don't know who shot him, nor do I even have, like, this bookmark system. I don't know how you even pull up the bookmarks to use. So let's see. We are either wrong about his name, and he's not the first mate steward, he's like the fourth mate steward, or this isn't the gunner's mate. And it's fairly hard to tell if one or the other could be different. Hmm. Hmm. Really, I'm just gonna have to make changes. I'm just gonna have to cycle through and brute force some things. Like, if at this point all of these, going through all of these does not do something, then we know we were wrong about something. But of course, the problem with this is I'm also unchecking everybody's name, so I don't think I even have 3 guesses now in place. And if it was a point of I only had to get 1 match right, brute forcing like this would work. But it definitely doesn't work this way. Hmm. Hmm. The gunner's mate is from Poland. Henry Evans. Bosun's mate is from France. 4th mate. Yeah, one of those was right, but we don't know which. Like, my guess is he is probably Samuel Peters. That's the only thing that slightly makes sense, unless we're gonna say he's Lewis Walker, top man, which maybe his climbing this does imply that he's a top man. And then we think this is probably midshipman. And then maybe this guy isn't a top man. Instead, maybe he's Samuel Peters. And maybe this girl is not Emily Jackson, but instead Miss Jane Bird. And then if that's the case, we still, I assume that this is the surgeon, Henry Evans. He kind of has to be the surgeon, even though we still don't know where he's supposed to be alive. I still kind of think Africa. And this guy has to be a steward of some sort. And the only English looking steward would be Davy James. We know this guy, so we couldn't have changed his name. We know this guy, so we can't change his name. We know that guy, so we can't change that name. So, see if we start at the beginning. I honestly don't think we're going to be able to brute force this. Let's see. Helmsman. We never see the helmsman at the helm. Does that make any sense though? They'd be at the bottom. We also never see a steward near the captain. So he could be from Sierra Leone. Oh no, I don't know what Sierra Leonean people look like. Could be the first mate steward, but he's too old looking. I think you call him the helmsman. That doesn't make any sense. But whatever. Now, why would a helmsman be? So is he a midshipman? Thomas Link, midshipman. Maybe. And then there's just a ton of correct information, which kind of feels like you should be able to skip this. All right. Let's see. Do I think this guy, let's see, is a seaman. So I think he's maybe that seaman. Yes, we did. And that got me like 3 achievements. Wow. Africa. Great. Alright, well then we know for a fact she's alive in Africa. And then what I think that tells me we can also do is we can put the other female passenger as alive in Africa. We'll do 2 tests here. We'll search this guy, and then we'll switch the names. Alright, so we know then that this guy is not that steward. Do we have anybody else that would be a good argument for him? So if that's right now, then that would have to be right. Unless we've got this guy's name completely wrong. This is getting a little too complicated for the usefulness of it. Let's just label this one. It's Mary J. Bird. And then oh, I don't have this right. So 2 of those should be right. And that should just let me brute force all of this down. Say, well, is this the ship steward? No. Is this that guy? The captain steward? No. Is it that? No. Unbelievable that he would be a seaman or a topman or a midshipman. So I think that what that implies then is, unless one of these people actually did die, we need to switch these two names. And then brute force it again. Well done, 3 more fates correct. But those were the gimme fates, so they kind of don't help as much as you would think, other than now we know if we see anybody that looks like a steward, it's the first mate steward, and we kind of know who shot this person. This is Emily Jackson, alive in Africa. She shot him. And if he's not Samuel Peters, then he's either Abraham Akbar, which I guess maybe that could be Abraham Akbar. He is a seaman around a bunch of other seamen. Yeah, I guess that's Abraham Akbar. And then this guy would have been stabbed by Abraham Akbar, if we assume that that's correct. And then we could try and brute force this midshipman. Like, he's not a Russian guy, is he? Russian top man? Or he's not a sailor. So he's gotta be the first mate steward. Yeah. Second mate steward, first mate steward. It would make a lot of sense. Captain steward. Those two could be backwards, certainly. We're gonna have to wrap up, but with a small bit of luck, we might be able to brute force the last bits of this. Like, we've gotten everybody in this area locked in pretty much. And like, once you get that information down, then there's kind of nothing more that you could grab from this. This guy has to be one of the mates, but we don't know who shot him yet. This guy, we don't know who clubbed him. So there's 1, 2, 3, soon to be just 2 people left alive, on top of these people that were left at the very end, these final 4. And I suppose it is possible that there were more people in the final 10th chapter that were just downstairs. Yeah, that is believable. And then we still probably aren't far enough that we could actually just brute force guess. There's we're almost to that point. There's 6 or 7 people left. So I could probably brute force it, but it seems like what we'll just do is we'll follow the map and allow the map to take us through the rest of part 9 of Escape. And then there's no real reason to go through part 10 again, but we may just do it for fun, just so we can say we went through the whole story in a somewhat linear experience, even though we haven't seen the bargain, which would be the part that we'll only see once. See, am I at the right place? Escape part 4, yeah. This dead body compared to that dead body. Alright, well, that was an hour and 20 minutes. So, as always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.